This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We're now holding in the weeks after Tisha B'Av, which is called the Shiva de Nechemta, the 7 weeks of consolation, which are mostly known for the Haftoros that we lay in during these weeks, starting with Shabbos Nachamu. It's interesting that a period of time of the year is known primarily for the Haftoros. I don't believe there's any other time of the year where the period of time, the Zman, is the highlight of the Zman is the Haftoros of the Zman. So apparently that tells you something about the importance of the Haftarah of these 7 weeks. And we're going to learn something quite interesting, that of all the Haftarahs we lay in throughout the year, these are from among the most important. And if you take a look in the Shulchan Aruch and Arachayim, Siman Taf Chav Ches, Siv Zayin, Mechaber says, Mi Yud Zayin Betamos Ve'elach Maftiren Gimel de Paranusa. See, the Shiva de Nechemta we're familiar with, but a little bit less familiar, are the Gimel de Paranusa, the 3 Haftarahs of punishment, followed by Zayin de Nechemta, the 7 weeks of consolation, Tarti de Tiyufta, and the 2 weeks of Tshuva. So actually it's a total of 12 Haftarahs. It's a series of 12 Haftarahs. What are the Gimel de Paranusa? Number 1, Divrei Yirmiyah, in the first parak of Yirmiyah. Number 2, Shimu Dvar Hashem, also from Yirmiyah. That's right after that in Yirmiyah. And 3, Chazoin Yishayahu. Those are the 3 weeks of punishment. What are the 7 weeks of Nechama? Sheva de Nechemta, Nachamu is number 1. Nachamu, we'll see, comes from Yeshaya, Parak Mem. Followed by Vatoimer Tzion, Azavani Hashem is this week. That's from Yeshaya, Parak Mem Tes, through Parak Nun Aleph. Then Aniya Soyara Loi Nuchama, which is Yeshaya Nun Dalet. Then Anoichi Hu Menachemchem, that's Yeshaya Nun Aleph through Nun Beis. Then Roni Akara, Yeshaya Nun Dalet. Then Kumi Oiri, that's Yeshaya Samach. And then Sois Osis Bashem. Those are the 7 weeks of Nechama. Followed by what we call Tarti de Tiyufta, the 2 weeks of Tiyufta. What are Tarti de Tiyufta? Not as well known even as the Gimel de Parnusa. 2 weeks of Tshuva. So you say, you don't have 2 weeks of Tshuva, you don't have 2 Haftarahs of Tshuva. You do. You have Haftarah on Som Gedalia, Dirshu Hashem B'himatzai, and you have Haftarah on Shabbos Shuva, which is what? Shuva Yisrael. So that's what the Mechaber says. V'yom tzom gedalya b'mincha maftirin dirshu, v'b'shabbos v'in Rosh Hashanah l'yom ha'kippurim maftirin la'olam shuva. Okay. Now we just have over here a list of where the 7 weeks of Nechama come from. And if you look at the list, there are 2 glaring problems. Number 1, Nachamu ami yomer alekeichem is Yeshaya Mem. Okay. 40th parak of Yeshaya. Vatoimer Tzion Azavani Hashem Mem Tes through Nun Dalet. What? Through Nun Aleph. So actually, it's from the end of Mem Tes to the beginning of Nun Aleph. Then you have Aniya Soyara Loi Nuchama, the end of Nun Daled. And then Anoichi Hu Menachemchem, Nun Aleph through Nun Beis.
How come Nun Daled come before?
So here's the problem. Problem is that Aniya Soyara appears in Yeshaya after Anoichi Hu Menachemchem, and here the order is reversed. Then you have Roni Akara Lo Yalada is the beginning of Nun Daled. So actually Roni Akara Lo Yalada is before Aniya Soyara Lo Nuchama. If you look in the Navi, Yeshaya, first Parak Nun Daled begins Roni Akara Lo Yalada. And then the end of Nun Daled is Aniya Soyara Lo Nuchama. And here the order is inversed. It's very interesting. Really, Aniya Soyara, Haftarah number 3, in our order, comes before Haftarah number 5. But it should be in reversed. Aniya Soyara actually appears after Roni Akara. And even more strange is Anoichi should be before both of those. So it's really 2 problems. Problem number 1 is Aniya Soyara and Roni Akara is switched. And problem number 2 is Anoichi appears before all of them, and it's in between. So really, if you would want to, and then if you want to write the correct order, first should come Nachamu Nachamu, then Vatomer Tzion Azavani Hashem, then Anoichi Anoichi Hu Menachemchem, then Roni Akar Lo Yolada, then should be Aniya Sayara, then should be Kumi Ori, and then Soisasa. So there are two problems with the order. Okay, and we have to address that. But let's speak in general about the Haftoros. How important are the Haftarahs? So one thing you should know is that really your shul should have a klaf. Really, a shul needs a klaf. If you want to be Yotzei Haftarah properly, it needs a klaf. If your shul you don't need another Sefer Torah, there are enough Sefer Torah, you need a klaf. So tell your rabbi, tell the board, that enough money is being invested on this and that, you need a klaf. Haftarah is a takana. Who's going to lane it? People don't like to get it. People are resistant to getting a klaf because how the bar mitzvah boy is going to lane it. They don't have to lane it, but you do have to lane from a klaf. Okay? If you want to know order of priorities, Haftarah needs to be from a klaf. Who's going to lane it? The same Balkari who prepares the Parsha. Let him prepare the Haftarah. Okay. But if you're laning it from a Tanakh, then the listeners need to say it along quietly to be Yotzei. Okay, that's the first thing. But let's say the weekly Haftarah. Where does it say in the Gemara that you have to lane this Haftarah this week? Does it say anywhere? It doesn't say anywhere. It doesn't say anywhere in Shas that this Haftarah has to be laned this week. There are only a few mandated Haftarahs. You have Yomim Tovim. Yomim Tovim are mandated. At the end of Masechta Megillah, it tells you on Pesach you lane this, on Shavuos you lane this, on Sukkot you lane this. And it says on the Dalit Parsha you should lane this Haftarah and that Haftarah. And the Shiva Dinachemta are also mandated, actually, maybe even before the time of the Gemara. Okay, and that's what we're going to look into today. Where do the Haftarahs, the Zayin Dinachemta, come from? So take a look in number 7. The Gemara in Megillah says that if Rosh Chodesh Av falls out on Shabbos, so now you have a dilemma. Normally on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, what do you lane? Hashemayim Kissi, right? If Rosh Chodesh is Sunday, right? But what do you do if Rosh Chodesh Av falls down on Shabbos? So do you do Hashemayim Kissi? So the Gemara says you lane Chodshechem Umayadechem Sana Nafshi. So you kill two birds with one stone. One is you mention Rosh Chodesh, and the other thing is you mention punishment, that Hashem is not happy with us. However, we don't do that. Even when Rosh Chodesh Av falls out on Shabbos, what do we lane Rosh Chodesh Av that falls out on Shabbos? That would be the second week of the Gimel de Parnusa. You would lane Shimud Dvar Hashem. Okay? Look at Tosfos, Ve'ein anu oisin kain. We do not follow the Gemara. A rare instance that we don't follow Talmud Bavli. Almost always we follow Talmud Bavli. Here we don't. Elamafter beYirmiyah Shimud Dvar Hashem. Uveshabbos shalifnei Tisha B'av Chazoin Yeshayahu.
We lay the first and the last pasuk of the Parsha of the Torah Rosh Chodesh after we finish. That's
dependent on the minhag. But the Yikar Haftarah, that's not critical. But what the Tosfos is saying, we don't lane Chodshechem Mayadechem, but instead we lane Shimud Dvar Hashem. And why? Why don't we listen to Shas? We follow the Midrash. The Medrash Psikta says, Loimar Gimel de Paranusa Kaidim Tisha B'av, that before Tisha B'av we lay in the Gimel de Paranusa. Ve'eluhein, here are the Gimel de Paranusa. Divrei Yirmiyah, Shimud Dvar Hashem, Chazoin Yeshayahu. Yeah, do Sfardim also do that? Yeah? Do Sfardim lay in the Gimel de Paranusa? Yeah. Of course Sfardim lay in it. There you have it. Okay. Ubasar Tisha B'av, after Tisha B'av, right? A Shev de Nechemta. You have the 7 of Nechama, V'tarti de Tiyufta, and the 2 of Tshuva, Ve'elohein. Number 1, Nachamu, from Yeshaya Perek Mem. Number 2, V'atomer Tzion, that's this week, Mem Tes. And then Aniya Soyara is Nun Dalet. And then Anoichi is Nun Aleph. And then Roni Akara is Nun Dalet. And then Kumi Oiri is Samach. And then Sois Asis is Samach Av through Samach Gimel. And then you have the Beis de Tiyufta, Dirshu, Shuva, So now here comes the big question. Ask Tosfos. Now Tosfos doesn't ask both of our questions. Again, we had 2 questions. One question is, Aniya Soyara and Roni Akara should be flipped, because Rani Akara really is before Ani Asayra, and Anoichi should be before both of them. Says Taisus, Ulafikach Makdimin Ani Asayra, Kaidim Rani Akara. Why do we put Haftarah 3 before Haftarah 5? It should be inversed. The answer is the derech hanachamos liyos holchos umeshubachos. The way consolation works is you progressively increase the consolation. You go higher and higher, more and more and more and more, and therefore we want to move up. We want to magnify the nechama, and in order to do that, we start small and we end big. So ani asayara lo nuchama is less of a consolation than Rani Akar La Yalada. So even though Rani Akar La Yalada appears before in the Navi, we inverse the order to... Now Tosfos completely disregards Anoichi. It doesn't even discuss it. Okay? And then, says Tosfos, what Parsha do we begin the Gimel de Paranusa? The Seder Zeh Maschel BePinchas. We begin the 3 weeks Parshas Pinchas. And here's the Siman. The Simanach Dashach Noya Ar Kish Dash. Got it? Got it? Now you won't forget. Deshech Noya Arik Shadash. And what is Deshech Noya Arik Shadash? Arik, I think you'll remember. But Deshech Noya Arik Shadash, right? What is it? Deshech is Divrei, Shimu, Chazoin. Noya is Nachamu, Vatoimer, Ani Asayra. Arak is Anoichi, Rani Akara, Kumi Ori. And Shadash is Saisasis, Dirshu, Shuva. Okay. Now, says Tosfos, the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah is always Sais, Asis, Ba'Shem, Tagel Nafshi Belokai. Why? The Hainu Shabbos number Hashanah Fishu, Soif HaNechames. That's the end of the Nechames. And I was always bothered by the fact that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av. And it's interesting, we have a lot more Nechama than we have Paranos. We have 3 weeks of Paranos, we have 7 weeks of Nechama. And I could guarantee you that once Tisha B'Av is over, the last thing on anybody's mind is Churban Beis HaMikdash. And no, we can't let go. Throughout the month of Av, Nechama, Nechama, Nechama. And Elul, we're blowing shofar, but what are we laying in the Haftarah? Not one word of tshuva in the Haftarah of Elul. Nechama, Nechama. It's the week before Rosh Hashanah. Tonight we're going to say Slichais, Nechama, Nechama, Nechama. Nobody needs, once Tisha B'Av is over, nobody wants to hear about the Nechama. No, we don't let up. We keep the Nechama coming. We don't mention a word of Tshuva throughout Rosh Chodesh Elul. All the Balei Musar are darshaning away. All the Gabarim are telling you to buy your seats. But the Navi, he's still giving you Nechama. Why? Why doesn't the Navi let up on the Nechama? Now apparently, these Haftarahs are from the most important of the year, to the extent where what if Rosh Chodesh Elul comes out on Shabbos? This year. Rosh Chodesh Elul, the first day of Rosh Chodesh is Shabbos, the second day is Sunday. So now you have a dilemma. Do you lane the Zayin de Nechemta, or do you lane Hashemayim Kissi? So you would think you should definitely lane Hashemayim Kissi. Hashemayim Kissi is one of the only Haftarahs that are mandated by Shas. Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. No, it's actually a Machloikis Rishonim. Do you lane Hashemayim Kissi, or do you drop Hashemayim Kissi and you maintain the Zayin de Nechemta? Who argues about this? The Mordechai, in the 4th parak of Megillah. The Mordechai was the Talmud of the Marami Rotemurk. He lived from 1240 to 1298. He and his entire family perished in the Rindfelsh massacres. He writes, V'imikla Rosh Chodesh Elul b'Shabbos Ein maftirin Hashemayim Kissi. We do not lay in Hashemayim Kissi. Ki ein medalgin zayin de Nechemos. They're untouchable. The Shiva de Nechemta are untouchable. Hashemayim Kissi is mentioned in the Gemara, and the Zayin de Nechemta is not even mentioned in the Gemara. It doesn't matter. Zayin de Nechemta is so important, they're untouchable. However, says the Mordechai, Uve Shpiyura, where's Shpiyura? Spires, one of the regions of Germany, right? Noagul Ladalek Zayin de Nechamos, we do skip it. In Spires they skip it. B'nei Hashemayim Kissi, and not only that, B'nei Vayirmel Yonasan, Shehein Ksuvais B'Talmud. Because look, Zayin Nechemta are important, but not as important as Haftaros that are mentioned in Shas. So now, on a regular year, this would just be academic. But this year, we have to know halach l'maisa. What do we do? Do we follow the Mordechai? Do we follow spires?
We follow spire.
What do we do? So it's a machloikis between the Mechaber and the Ramah. Take a look at number 5. The Shulchan Aruch and Siman Taf Chaf Hey. Rosh Chodesh Shechal Liyos B'Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh comes out on Shabbos. Mariv, Shachris, Mincha, you daven 7 brachos, like an ordinary Shabbos, and you say Yalav Yavai. And you don't mention Shabbos in Yalav Yavai, and you take out 2 Svarim, and you call up 7 Oilim for the first Sefer Torah. And the second Sefer Torah you lay in Maftir. And the Maftir consists of V'yayim HaShabbos of Rashi Chodshechem. And what Haftarah do you lay in? Hashemayim Kisi. No problem, that's what you do on Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Chutz me Rosh Chodesh Elul Shechal Liyos B'Shabbos Shemaftirin Aniya Soyara. When Rosh Chodesh Elul comes out on Shabbos, Zayin de Nechemta is untouchable. You do not move it. You do not lay in Hashemayim Kisi. Who's the Mechaber paskening like? The Mordechai. Hagah V'yesh Oimrim. There are those who say Hashemayim Kisi. There are those who say the Hashemayim Kisi. Who's that? The Kihilois Shpiura. B'chein Noyagim b'Medinos Elu. So if you would ask me, what do you do on Shabbos or Chodesh Elul? I would think the Sfardim follow the Mechaber, and they lane Aniya Sayara, and the Ashkenazim certainly follow the Ramah, and they lane Hashemayim Kisi. Now, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. You have to. What do the Sfardim do?
I still think that they do like the Ashkenazim. They say Hashemayim Kisi, and then they combine Aniya Sayara because it's
because you could make it up.
Make it up, exactly.
They combine Aniya Sayara maybe with Rani Akara.
Right. And the order, of course, starting with Rani Akara and then Aniya Sayara.
Yeah, okay, so you'll find out what they do.
Yeah.
But we definitely have Machlokes Mechaber and Ramah. This year, Rosh Chodesh Elul falls out on Shabbos. Yeah, but what do you do? What Haftarah do you lay in? Do you lay in Aniya Sayara or do you lay in Hashemayim Kisi? The Mordechai, followed by the Mechaber, says you lay in Aniya Sayara, and the Ramah follows Kila Shvaira, you lay in what? Hashemayim Kisi. So the question is, but isn't Zayin de Nechemta, isn't it untouchable? Isn't it untouchable? So the Taz says, no, it's not a problem. You know, because when you lay in Hashemayim Kisi, you could also kill 2 birds with 1 stone. How's that? Because Hashemayim Kisi talks about Rosh Chodesh, and it also talks about Nechamas Yerushalayim. Because the end of the Haftarah of Hashemayim Kisi is words of consolation regarding Yerushalayim. Sisi Yerushalayim V'gilu ba kolay havea sisi ita masois kol. Yeah, I think that's in the Haftarah of Hashemayim Kisi. The Taz says ki yesh ba tarti. You have 2 inyanim in the Haftarah of Hashemayim Kisi. The Hainu Rosh Chodesh, the Nechamas Yerushalayim. You have both the mention of Rosh Chodesh and Nechamas Yerushalayim. Okay.
Just I stand corrected. Rabbi Artskol says that his father is still called Aniya Sayara.
So the Mahaduras Art Scroll Masorah Yafa edition, the one with the square luchos, says that Kasher Rosh Chodesh Elul Chal B'Shas Parshas Re'eh, like this year, Karim B'Mokim Hamav D'Rogas Hamaftel Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, B'Hasfardim Karim Moses Haftarah Haragila Aniya Sayara. Okay, so here we have it's Machlokes Mechaber Ramah.
But they will.
But they'll make it up?
No.
They'll make up?
They will read the first and the last pasuk of Hashemayim Kisi as well. They will do that as well.
Okay.
And Machar Rosh Chodesh also. Machar Rosh Chodesh also.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but that's just like a tack on. That's not really okay.
One of the main
So now we have a very interesting tshuva over here. The Shasa tshuva is Tzemach Tzedek Harishain. Not to be confused with the Tzemach Tzedek of Lubavitch. This is the Tzemach Tzedek, Rav Menachem Mendel Krachmil. Rav Menachem Mendel Krachmil. He was a Talmud of the Bach. He was the Avezin of Nikolsburg. He lived from 1600 to 1661. So he was the first Tzemach Tzedek, Rav Menachem Mendel Krachmil. And by the way, why did he name his sefer Tzemach Tzedek? Because the gematria of Tzemach Tzedek is Menachem Mendel. So that's why if your name is Menachem Mendel, any Menachem Mendel, and you're writing a sefer, Tzemach Tzedek is always a handy name of a sefer to have in your back pocket. Okay. But he says like this. Tzarach ani lahakdim. She'elu haftaros shamin yedzayin tamas ve'elach she'simonam dashach noya arkish dash adifi mikol haftaras hashana. They're more important than any haftaras the whole year. Dechol haftara hashana chutz haftaras mayadim. All the haftaras of the year except for the haftarah of Yom Tif. Parshas, I think that means $1 Parshas. For Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, Af al pi shehemi divrei Rabbi Seinu Zal, even though they are from the Rabbanon, sheyesh likros haftarah b'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos, the Rabbanon did legislate that you should learn the haftarah because it's not reish parak hakaras of Megillah, like it says at the end of the fourth parak of Megillah. Aval mikol makom like kavel chazal is haftarah sheyukarin l'Shabbos. It was never mandated. This week you learn this, that week you learn that. On a normal Shabbos, there's no legislation. You have to learn this. The Chachamim said we should learn something relevant to the Parsha. However, it was left up to the sages of the generation that they could arrange it according to their decision. Haftarah it's only the Mayadim and Rosh Chodesh and the Dal Parshas that they legislated. But they never legislated any of the other weeks. With the exception of the Gimel de Paranusa and the Shiva de Nechemta. Kavu Rabbi Seinu Eza Haftarah Sheyukarin B'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos. Zu achar zu. They legislated the first week of Zayin de Nechemta Nachamu, followed by Vatomer Tzion, followed by Aniyah Soyara, followed by Anochi Anochi. Where do we get this from? Like Tosfos says in the second parak of Bnei Ha'ir, in the fourth parak of Megillah, in the name of the Psikta, and then he quotes the Torah, U'maisi la hator, Archaim siman tav chav ches, V'zel lashon hator. The Psikta, in the Psikta, the Torah quotes, Mi'bereshis ad Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, Maftir me'inyin ha'parshas doime b'doime. From Bereshis until you get up to the 17th day of Tammuz, what do you learn for the Haftarah? Something relevant to the Parsha. No specific Haftarah mandated. But Umisham ba'elach, but from Yud Zayin B'Tammuz till the end of the year, there's no more free choice. Your discretion has been removed. You know, if you want to categorize the year, the first 2/3 of the year are discretionary haftarahs, and the last third of the year are legislated haftarahs. Once you start fasting Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, freedom of choice has been taken away. The first 2/3 of the year, we leave it to your discretion. Just learn something relevant. The last part of the year, we don't trust you anymore. Right? The Chachamim said exactly what to learn which week. What are they? Tlasa de Paranusa, Shiva de Nechemta, Tarti de Tiyufta. Okay, and then he says what they are. And he says exactly, he says, Nachamu is Va'aschanan, Va'tomer Tzion. And it's not just in weeks. It's not just week 1 Nachamu, week 2 Va'tomer Tzion, week 3 Aniyah Soyara. It's more than that. Va'aschanan must be Nachamu. Va'tomer Tzion must be Eikev. Aniyah Soyara must be Re'eh. Anochi is Shoiftim. Very interesting. So what's the nafkamina, how important it is? It says the Tzemach Tzedek in the next paragraph. Bekivan dahachihu, since this is the case, shehaftaras elu adifi mikol shar haftaras Shabbos v'Shashana. Since these are the most important haftaras of the year, and they can't be changed, Shem Kvuin, the Rabbi Seinu, Yireh, Pashat, it would seem obvious. Shem loy karu haftaras divrei Yirmiyah. You ready for this? Let's say you missed a week. Let's say they couldn't find the cloth. So you're not going to lay in the Haftarah, obviously, if you can't find the cloth. So what are you going to do? You hope you find it the next week. What if the tzibur missed the Haftarah? Yireh pashud shemloi karu haftaras divrei Yirmiyah b'shaita leParshas Pinchas. If Parshas Pinchas went by and for whatever reason the tzibur did not lay in the Haftarah, yesh la tashlumin lekroisa b'Shabbos haba. You lay in it the next week. If you miss Haftarah Parshas Bereshis, you will not make it up Noach. If you miss Noach, you will not make it up Lech Lecha. There is no Haftarah the whole year. There's no makeup for Haftarahs. By the way, there's no real makeup for Kriyas Haftarah either, unless the whole Tzibor missed it. But when it comes to the Shiva Nechemta, if you miss the first week of Puranusa, you know why you can make it up week 2? Very simple. Because the first week of the Gimel de Paranusa is the first parak of Yirmiyah. The second week of the Gimel Paranusa is the second parak of Yirmiyah. So if you missed week 1 and week 2, so instead of starting parak Beis, you start parak Aleph and you learn parak Aleph and parak Beis. Because it's very convenient. But it's not only because it's convenient. It's also because it's very important. So it's a combination of the fact that the Haftaros really appear one after each other in the Nevi'im, and the other factor is these are very important Haftaros. They date back and they're already sourced in the Psikta, and therefore if you miss one, you would usually make it up. So for example, Im Haftaros Shimushi LeParshas Matas Maseh, that means the Shabbos of Parshas Matas Maseh, you should begin to learn from Yirmiyah Parak Aleph, Divrei Yirmiyah ben Chilkiyahu, right? And then you learn the Haftarah of Pinchas, and then you learn the Haftarah of Matas Maseh, the Kimmachin Smuchen Zelazeh, B'li Hefsek Klal, and they're one Inyan, and they're all about Tisha B'Av, then you could learn it together. Now, interestingly, if you missed Shimud Dvar Hashem, the second week of the Puranusa, you can't make it up week 3. Because you're not going to learn Parak Beis of Yirmiyah, and then jump to Parak Aleph of Yeshaya. Because you're not allowed to be medaleg in the Nevi'im from one book to another like that. Only in the Treyasar you could skip. Like we do Shabbat Shuvah, you skip, right? But or we do, let's say, the Haftarah of Yoina, we skip from Yoina to Micha, right?
When Matas and Maseh is separate, do we start the Puranusa with Pinchas, or we start with
Matos.
Yeah, Matas. Yeah. Another thing he says, the Shiva Dinachemta are more important than the rest of the Torahs of the year. And they're so important that there's an opinion of the Mordechai, who the Mechaber and the Sfardim go with, that Aniyah Sayara trumps Hashamayim Kissi. But listen to what he says. Lakach, the conclusion of the Tzemach Tzedek is, Kol Kama de Efsher L'Tzdudei Tzdadim. As much as we could try to wiggle out, to lo yiyu nidches haftarah dinachemta legamri, not to push off any of the shiva dinachemta. Idolgu le'ezem, if you, for whatever reason, skipped one, shaper dam, you should try to make it up. So therefore, it's very logical. Listen to what he says. L'kach mestaber, degam lahaftarah v'atoymer tzion. Let's say you missed the haftarah this week. You missed v'atoymer tzion azavani Hashem, which comes from Yeshaya, Mem Testu Nun Aleph. Then you could make it up in 2 weeks. Then mistaber the gam after vatam shil vash zeik after anoich shil vash shel vatas kumi uri shil vash gisavoy yesh lahem tashlumin. Since the haftaras are in very close proximity, if you miss one, you could make it up in a week that comes right after. Yeah. On the tzibur. But if you're there and you want to be yotze, you would have your own personal obligation to try to say it along. If you happen to daven in a shul that doesn't have a clap, which is most of the, except for Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim has a clap, and what? Abbas Yisrael, what shul has a clap? Chaim? Yeah, I don't. Whatever. It's a
Torah sermons.
Unfortunately, we do not have a clap.
So you're saying if you don't have a clap,
you should say it along.
Say it along. And if you have a clap, you don't have to say it.
You don't have to say it along.
You shouldn't say it along, but you have to be good. Say it like
Correct.
Megillah, you know.
Correct.
You say it quietly.
Yeah, correct. Right. Okay. So now let's talk about the order of the Haftarahs. It seems to be out of order. Again, Aniyah Sayara and Rani Akara are out of order, and Anoichi should come before both of them. So Tosfos said, well, we're going in progressive order of increasing the Chama. But that would be a little bit, somewhat difficult. Why is the Navi giving then, if we're taking the Navi out of order because we want to go in increasing order, that means the Navi in a way is not really going in order of progressive Nechama. So the Lavush quotes really a beautiful pshat, an unbelievable pshat. The Lavush in Siman Taf Chavches, he brings down first the Medrash, that the Shiva de Nechemta, how much Nechama do you need? Says Rebbe Shem, you need a lot of Nechama. So much Nechama, I will console you until the year is over. Rebbe Shem said, look, if the Chorm Beis HaMikdash was, in Chodesh Nisan, I'd be consoling you the whole year. But it was Tisha B'Av, I'm going to take you through the end of the year. And then he says like this. The simon is Noya Arkish, which stands for Nachamu, Vatomer Tzion, Ani Asayra, Anoichi, Rani Akara, Kumi Ari Saisasis. And it's also connected the 7 Nechamais. The Midrash says that when Klal Yisrael went into Galus, it's like a king that was taken captive with his children, with his son-in-laws, and with his whole nation. And the queen is alone, bereft, lonely in the palace for days and years. And then they tell the queen, guess what? Everyone's coming back. Who's the queen? The queen is Yerushalayim. Who's the king? The Ribbon Shalom. Who are the children, the sisters, the brothers, the daughter-in-laws? That's us. So Yerushalayim is given the nechama that your children are coming back. B'kibbutz baneha l'soicha b'simcha. The Zayin nechamais are the return of the banim, the banois, the kalois, the chasanim, the brothers, the sisters, and finally Hashem. That's why the final Haftarah is what? Sois, Asis, Bashem. But, says the Lavush, I have two questions here. Ela sha'adayin sarach taima. We still need a reason. Lama oimre moisam bezeh seder zu acharzu. Why do we say them out of order? Ve'ein oimre moisam keseder shem ksuvim b'navi. Why don't we say them in the order that they're written in the Navi? Shaharei roni akara v'ani asayara mihufachim. Haftarah 3 and Haftarah 5 are inverted. And v'oid shem ksuvim achar anoichi. And also they're written after anoichi. Says Lavush, let me tell you something. I saw in the Avodraham that the reason for the order of these Haftarahs is because of the following little story that happens after Churban Beis HaMikdash. Rebbeinu Shalom comes to the Nevi'im and he says, Nevi'im, I destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. Please go console the people. So the Nevi'im go to Klal Yisrael and they start consoling us. And we say, we don't want to hear your consolation. You didn't destroy the Beis HaMikdash. We will not be consoled by you. We don't want to hear your consolation. What does Klal Yisrael say? When Hashem tells the Navi, Nachamu, Nachamu, Klal Yisrael says, Vatomer Tzion, Azavani Hashem. What, God has forsaken me? I don't want to hear your consolation. So the Nevi'im go back to Rebbeinu Shalom and they say to Rebbeinu Shalom, the Jewish people don't want to be consoled. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, why not? So the Nevi'im say, because they want to hear it from you. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, oh, they want to hear from me? No problem. I personally will console them. Says the Lavush, this episode is played out by the order of the Haftarahs of the Zayin Denachemta. Hashem comes to Nevi'im. He tells Nevi'im, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Please go console my people. So Nevi'im come to us and they start consoling us. And we say, we don't want to hear your consolation. Has God forsaken us? V'atomer Tzion azavani Hashem. Tzion says, Klal Yisrael says, Yerushalayim says, has God forsaken us? So the Navi goes and reports back to Rebbeinu Shalom. The Jewish people are Aniya Soyara Loinu Chama. They are storm-tossed. They will not be consoled. Says Rebbeinu Shalom, Anoichi, Anoichi, Hu menachemchem. If that's the case, I personally will console them. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says to us, Rani Akara Lo Yolada. Do you feel barren? Do you feel like you have not given birth? No, I tell it to you, personally I say, Kumi oiri kiva oirech. Arise, because your light has come. Sois tasus Hashem. So says the Lavush from the Avodraham, the order of the Haftarahs is not the order that they're written, but instead it's supposed to be playing out the storyline of this episode where the Rebbeinu Shalom first orders the Nevi'im to console us, and we don't want to be consoled until finally the Rebbeinu Shalom has to personally console us. If you take a look in the Lavush, let's see it inside. Achar about 12 lines from the bottom. Achar kach matzasi b'sefer Avodraham tam b'medrash l'seder zeh al derech hatzachos v'amru ki tiknu loymar b'tchilas haftaros. They were enacted to say from the beginning of the Haftaros, from Nachamu Nachamu, koloymar sha'kadosh baruch hu omer l'neviim Nachamu Nachamu esami. Uv'shah b'shniya Klal Yisrael responds, Vatomer Tzion Azavani Hashem. Koloymar, Eina mispayeses b'nechamas hanavim. We will not be consoled. Ki chafetzim l'nechamas Hashem yizog ba'atzmai. We want to hear God's personal consolation. Uveshabes shlishis oimrim, aniya sayara, koloimar. The Nevi'im go back to the Rebbeinu Shalom and they say, Rebbeinu Shalom, Klal Yisrael will not be nispayis with our tanchumen. They are aniya sayara loy nuchama. Says Rebbeinu Shalom on the fourth Shabbos, Hashem says, Anoichi, Anoichi, hu menachemchem. Koloimar, ba'atzmi ani menachem eschem. And therefore you, Klal Yisrael, who you consider yourself the Rani Akar Lo Yalada, I tell you in week 5, week 6, Kumi Oiri, and then finally, Sois Asis Bashem.
Who is third person? So you interpret it that third was saying, I am going to be the one, but it says who? He, I, whom
Okay. Not a question on anything I said. I hear. By the way, the Rabbi Meir Shapiro, the Lublina Rav, he has a little bit of a different.
Daf Yomi.
Yeah, he was a big fan of Daf Yomi.
I would say.
Well,
I would say so.
He was pro Daf Yomi, right?
That's Rabbi Shapiro's cousin. Sure.
Wow, very good. So he has a little bit of a different nuance of this Vart. Instead of these Haftarahs being a storyline of the Rebbeinu Shalom coming to the Nevi'im and saying to the Nevi'im to console us, and we don't want to be consoled by the Nevi'im, and then the Rebbeinu Shalom consoles us himself, the Rabbi Meir Shapiro, this is quoted in the Sefer Mayana Shel Torah, Alexander Zusha Friedman, who is a chavrusa of my great-grandfather. Mayana Shel Torah. The Mayana Shel Torah is like the classic bar mitzvah gift, right? Every bar mitzvah gets like 5 Mayana Shel Torahs, right? So he brings down over here a Yalkut. The Yalkut says that La'asad Lava, the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to go to the Goyim. Hey, you Goyim, you hurt us, you murdered us, you tortured us. Go console the Jewish people. So the Goyim come to us to console us, and we say, Rebbeinu Shalom, we don't want their consolation. Moichel Zayin, their consolation. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, what do you want? So we say, we want you to console us. Rebbeinu Shalom says, fine, I will personally console you. To which Meir Shapiro said, the first pasuk of these Haftaros also play out this storyline between the Rebbeinu Shalom and the Ummah Ha'olam and Klal Yisrael, that Hashem orders the Ummah Ha'olam, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, and we don't want to hear their Nachama, so we say, Vatomer Tzion, Azavani Hashem. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, if in fact you are the Aniya Sayara Lo Nuchama, then I will personally be Menachem you, Anoichi Hu Menachemchem. By the way, there's another take on these 7 weeks of Nechama. But in the Sefer HaToidah, he brings a medrash that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the tzaddikim that the tzaddikim should console the Jewish people. And first, the tzaddikim, week 1 is the collective tzaddikim's Nechama, the Jewish people. Week 2 is Avraham. That's why in this week is week 2. That's why in this week we mention Avraham in the Haftarah, right? Habitu al tzur chutzavtem v'yam keves bar chulaltem, right? Look at Avraham Avinu, because this is Avraham's Nechama. And week 3 is Yitzchak's Nechama. And week 4 is Yaakov. Week 5 is Moshe Rabbeinu. Week 6 is Yushalayim is Mavakish Tanchumen. And Yushalayim says, you know what? I'm not getting what I need. And finally, the Rebbeinu Shalom in week 7 gives his personal Nechama. And the Midrash plays out, very interestingly, that Rebbeinu Shalom says, go console the Jewish people. And Avram says, they're going to accept my Tanchumen. I called the Beis HaMikdash a har, like we learned last week. I called the Beis HaMikdash a har. And Yitzchak says, they're not going to accept my Tanchumen. I called it a Sadeh. And Yaakov says, they're not going to accept my Tanchumen. I called it a bias. And Moshe says, they're not going to accept my Tanchumen. I'm the one who wrote the Toichacha. Until finally, the Rebbeinu Shalom himself has to console us. By the way, Namish Oyem V'Noira, if you count up the psukim of the Shiva Dinachemta, you count up all the psukim. So let's count it up now. In Nachamu Nachamu Ami, you have 26 psukim. In Vatomer Tzion, you have 27 psukim. You're writing this down? But before you write this down, let me tell you the winning lottery numbers for today. Okay? That you're going to write down, right? Okay. Pick 7, right. Number 3, you have 12. You have 12. Number 3. Ani Asara is 12. And Anoichi is 24. And Rani Akara is 10. And Kumi Oiri is 22. And Sois Asis is 23.
43.
You have 144 psukim. 144 psukim. And if you add up the psukim of the Toichacha in Parshas Kisavai, in Parshas B'chukaisai, in Parshas Nitzavim, and in Shiras Hazinu, you have 143. You have 143 psukim of Paranos in Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and 144 psukim of Nechama in Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Why? Obviously, it says the Sefer HaTorah, Zeh L'umazeh, it's consolation for the Paranos, but you have a little bit more, a little bit extra. There's always more good in the world than there is bad, so you have more psukim of Nechama than you have psukim of punishment. Okay, let's see, in the remaining time, let's focus on some of the highlights of the psukim of the Shiva de Nechemta, starting with Nachamu. Nachamu, of course, is Nachamu is the gematria 208, which is the gematria of Pinchas, because this is one of the things that Eliyahu HaNavi will do. He will bring us the Nechama. But it's interesting. What's the Nachamu? Why isn't one time enough? Why do we need a double Nechama? Just as you say, Nachamu Ami. Why Nachamu? Why 2 times? Well, we're in number 11 now. The Midrash says that we sinned doubly, chatu b'chiflayim, like the pasuk says in Eicha, chet chata Yerushalayim, right? A double sin. And we were punished doubly. Ki lakcha miyad Hashem kiflayim. Double. And therefore we have a double nechama, nachamu. Now what does it mean we sinned doubly? What does it mean we were punished doubly? And what exactly is the double nechama? Well, if you take note of the first words of Nachamu, Ami, Yoimar, Elokeichem. Interesting. Amira is usually Lashon Raka. Yoimar, Amira is soft, Midas Harachamim. Elokeichem is usually Midas Hadin. Interesting, where the Midas Hadin, Elokeichem, is speaking to you Barachamim. In Shabbos Parshas Chazoin, Ki Pi Hashem Diber. There it's Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei Rachamim. Diber is Midas Hadin. So says the Bnei Yissaschar, we were so bad in the times of the Churban that we know tzaddikim are able to take the Midas Hadin and turn it into Midas Harachamim. Well, Rishaim are able to do the opposite. They're able to get the Midas Harachamim to sign off to punish them. They're so bad that even the Midas Harachamim is maskim that they should be punished. So in the times of the Churban, it was Kipi Yud Kei Vav Kei Diber. Even the Midas Harachamim spoke harshly. It was Diber. That was our chait. That was our double chait. Not only did we sinned so terribly that even Midas Harachamim consented that we should be punished. But when we were consoled, we turned it around so much that even Elokeichem, even Midas Hadin, said, you know what, they deserve to be rewarded, they deserve to be consoled. That's why it's Nachamu, Ami Yoimar, Amira, Elokeichem, even the Midas Hadin. Okay. By the way, the that's the Bnei Yissaschar, that's the Arvei Nachal. That's the Arvei Nachal. Who's the Arvei Nachal? Arvei Nachal was written by the Rav David Eibeshitz. As far as I know, no relation to Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz. Eibeshitz was the name of the city. Rav David Eibeshitz, he wrote Levushay Surad. Levushay Surad is a commentary on the Magen Avram. So that's what he says. The Bnei Yissaschar, in his Maimer Hay on the Shiva de Nechemta, he also says, what's the Nechama Kefula? Why by the Nechama does it say Elokeichem? And by the Oynesh it says, Ki lakcha miyad Hashem. So he points out that by the Oynesh, not only was it Ki Pi Hashem Diber, but it's Ki lakcha miyad Hashem. that we were so thoroughly rotten that even the Midas Harachamim had to punish us. Okay. It's a little, the only thing I added was the Arvei Nachal is taking note of the words Ki Pi Hashem Diber, and the Bnei Yissaschar is taking note of the fact Ki Lokcha Miyad Hashem. But it's the same point. Same point. Look at number 18. Says the Bnei Yissaschar also similarly. V'atoimer tzion azavani Hashem v'Hashem shcheichani. What's the Hashem? Also, the first Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei. The second Hashem is Adnos. Why by the Yud Kei Vav Kei does it say Aziva, and by the Adnos it says Shechecha? What's worse, to be forgotten or to be forsaken? Or to be sleeping? Which is worse, right? Which? Forsaken or forgotten? It's worse to be forsaken. Forgotten is the person he just doesn't remember anymore. The other, he didn't do it intentionally, it just slipped his mind. Forsaken is he left you. When it comes to Yud Kei Vav Kei, not only do we not, we don't even say it. We don't even pronounce Yud Kei Vav Kei. We do not pronounce Yud Kei Vav Kei. We know it exists, but Rebbeinu Shalom, when after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, we don't pronounce it anymore. So it's Keilu the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Yud Kei Vav Kei has forsaken us. We don't even use it. The Shem Adnos, we say it, but that's just Begeder, forgotten. Hashem, so to speak, on some dimension, we are shachuach, we're forgotten. So it says in Bnei Yissaschar, V'atoimer tzion azavani Yud Kei Vav Kei. When it comes to Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we don't even pronounce, that's an aziva. When it comes to the Aleph Daled Nun Yud, that is the Adnos. Okay, that is, Shikha. That is Shikha. Says Chaim Kanievsky. Chaim Kanievsky says a very nice thing. On the Haftarah of, also this week, I'm giving you good material for this week's Haftarah, because, you can come to the table, and they're going to say, let's say a Dvar Torah, and they say, are you again on the Parsha? You say, no, this week not on the Parsha, this week on the Haftarah. Okay, and fine. So, Rav Chaim Kanievsky points out, V'atoimer tzion azavani Hashem, v'Hashem shcheichani. The Toysis in the Masechta Rosh Hashanah brings the Midrash. These two Hashems are the two Hashems of the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. Hashem, Kelchanon V'Racham. And what does it mean that the two names of Hashem have forgotten us? We know Hashem Koydem Achet, Hashem La'achar Achet. What is the Midah of Rachamim before the Chet? Midah of Rachamim before the Chet is Siyata D'Shmaya, that you don't sin to begin with. And what is the Midas Harachamim after the Chet? Is that Hashem should forgive your sin. So what we're saying is, V'atoimer tzion azavani Hashem. The first Hashem of Yegimel Midas Harachamim has forgotten us, has forsaken us, that we don't no longer have that Siyata D'Shmaya anymore to help us, to prevent us from sin. And then the Midas Hashem La'achar Achet has also left us in a way that Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't forgive us the way He always did. One more thing from the Haftarah of this week, or maybe two more things. One of the psukim we say is Hashem Elokim. Look at number 19. Hashem Elokim, Nasan li lashon limudim, ladas, laus, es yaif davar, yair baboiker. Hashem gave me a knowledgeable tongue to know, to set a time for those who are thirsty for the word of Hashem, to awaken every morning. And Rashi says, what does this mean? That Yeshaya Hanavi is saying, Hashem sent me, and He gave me the oratory skills to be able to teach the people who are yearning and thirsting for the word of Hashem. Now I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer the question. You could choose to remain silent. It's not an obligation. But if you want to participate in this particular discussion and open up, what do you listen to more? Even if you do you listen to your Rav's drasha on Shabbos more, or a shir that you go to during the week?
Torah anytime, for sure.
Right? What do you... No, not names, not mentioning... Let's say both of them were the same caliber. What do you listen to more carefully? The Shabbos Drasha? Thank you. Okay, fine. Look, you got it, you know. I set you up, but you got it, okay. No, but really, what do you listen to more? The Shabbos Drasha? In general, what do people listen to more?
It depends who gives the drasha.
No, I know, assuming the same person even. Shabbos Drasha, or a shiur that... I think most people listen to a shiur that they go to. 90% of people.
The thing about the already,
Because the shiur, you go voluntarily. So if you go to a shiur voluntarily...
There are a number of factors. First of all, Shabbos morning people are tired. For whatever reason. They're hungry, it's a long davening. They just sat through the shacharis and the laning. It's not a good time to speak. Even a good speech, it's not... a shiur, okay. But part of it is, and this is what our Rosh Hashiva, Rav Henach Leibowitz, he pointed out, you see from Rashi, that Yeshaya HaNavi is saying that Rebbe Hashem gave him the ability to speak for those who are thirsting for the word of Hashem. Rashi says to establish set times. Look, he says, Harei Mavur Midivrei Rashi, Yeshaya kava, Yeshaya established, le'elu shahayu tzmeim l'shmaya, for those thirsting to hear, Divrei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, itim kvuim, set times l'shmaya svarav, to listen to his words. In other words, apparently Yeshaya was a good speaker, and he had a good audience. The people were interested, and the people were thirsting. But he had to also make sure that he takes care of one other factor, otherwise it sounds like he would not be successful. And that is, he had to make set times. Why? Sounds like if he would just get up and speak, then even someone who is thirsting for the word of Hashem would not be as receptive to the message as someone who came at a set time. Why is that? Because if somebody just happens to be going to someone who's speaking, yeah, it's interesting, it's this, but I don't necessarily want to be here right now. I haven't prepared myself to have to endure this speech right now. As opposed to if someone has a set time to go to something, he has already set aside the time, he's already prepared himself. Okay, I'm giving my hour, I'm giving my half hour, I'm giving my 10 minutes. I'm now preparing myself to listen to what this person has to say. But if a person does not have a set time, if it's a little bit haphazard, this week the laning ends, this week was a double Parsha, he's still going to speak, even though it's a double Parsha. It's not as easy to be receptive to a drasha that is not as set as if a drasha has set times. Yeah?
Rabbi Ruma Old Shalom insisted on speaking because he felt that some Balabatim was the only Torah that he holds. On Shabbos, he insisted on no matter what it was.
Yeah, I think the rabbi should speak on Shabbos. I'm just pointing out the phenomenon that sometimes people pay. It's not necessarily the best venue for somebody to speak at a time where the olam is not sure when it's going to start and when it's going to end. That's it, right? If a olam is used to a shiur starting at a certain time, they're able to sort of cope with the what they're about to hear. Okay. Two more things. Number 21, okay? This week's Haftarah ends, I believe it's this week. Okay? Shimu elai roit feit tzedek. Listen to me, those who pursue righteousness. Mevakshe Hashem, those who seek out Hashem. Habitu el tzor chutzavtem. Look at the rock that you are hewn from. V'el makheves bar nukartem. And the hollow of the pit that you were dug from. In other words, the Navi tells Klal Yisrael, think about where you come from. El Avraham habitu el Avraham avichem. Look at Avraham Avinu. V'el Sarah techoilalchem. Look at Sarah Imenu. Ki echad karasiv. They were one. Va'avarcheu, and I blessed them. Va'arbeu, and I increased them. Ki nicham Hashem Tzion. God will console Tzion. Nicham kol charvaisel. He will console her ruins. Va'yasem midbara ke'eden. And he will make her deserts flourish. And the question is, Ma Shmita Eitzel Har Sinai. Or in Hebrew they say, in English they say,
What's the connection?
Right? What does that got to do with the price of tea in China? Oh, look at Avraham Avinu, look at Sarah. God will rebuild Zion. Well, what does one thing got to do with the other? So, the Sefer Likutei Chaver Ben Chaim, who's a Talmud Chasam Sefer, brings like this. The Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin wants to know, What proof is there that they're going to be Tchias HaMesim? And the Gemara says like this. If someone who was never born could be born, that someone who was born but died certainly could be revived. It's a Kavachomer. Right? If you were never existed and you could now exist, certainly if you did exist, you could exist again. If you look at Yerushalayim, and you look at it where it's desolate from its children, and it's profane, and it's bechurbana, and you wonder, how is it possible for it ever to be rebuilt? Says Rebbeinu Shalom, that's not a big deal. Just look at Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was supposed to be one. Sarah was supposed to be one. In the stars, there was no plans for them to be able to have children. And yet I took two people who were not supposed to have continuity. And I gave them an osid, I gave them a future. So says Rebbeinu Shalom, if I could take Avraham Avinu, I could take Sarah Yemenu, who weren't, and yet they became Kavachomer Tzion, which was Klilas Yoifi. Kavachomer Tzion, which was Rabbasiyam, Sarasi Bamadinos, the most beautiful city in the world, the most holiest city in the world, a city that was, all the more so, Kavachomer Ki Nicham Hashem Tzion Nicham Kol Charvaisach. Okay, let's end with the following. Last thing. This time for real. Yeah? What?
That was a good place to end.
Yeah, but this one's better. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. One last thing. We'll end with Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. It's the first Haftarah of the Shiva Nechemta. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Console, console my people. Problem is, what's the consolation? There is no console my people, console my. Imagine, you're going to a Shiva house, and there are people sitting Shiva, and somebody calls out, console the mourners, console the mourners. Yeah, what do you tell them? There's no consolation in the whole Haftarah. What's the consolation? So, let me tell you what Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says, but before that I have to tell you a little bit about royal life in England. Okay? In England, if you became the king, it wasn't because you were the most benevolent, soft-hearted, kind individual. In order to become the king, you had to be the greatest assassin. Right? You basically mean you killed everybody under you. That's how you became the king of England. And if you were the king of England, the greatest honor you could bestow is one of two things. Either you could appoint somebody, a royal member of the Knights of the Bath. An even greater honor would be to appoint someone, a royal member of the Knights of the Garter. Now, what does it mean to be a royal member of the Knights of the Bath? Well, you would be presented with a little washcloth, and then you would be taken into the king's bath, and you would be allowed to rub 1 square inch of the king's smelly, corpulent back. But not more than an inch, because that would be too much covered for a human being to handle in this world. And you would come in, and you would rub his back, and that would stop. Then you would have to put on special begadim, and you were royalty. And your wife would have to wear special begadim, and your children would have to wear special begadim. If anybody would look at your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren in a bad way, they would kill them. And ad hayoim hazeh, until 2015 in England, if your Elta Zayda was a royal member of the Knights of the Bath, you're royalty. Why? Because you serve the king. And if you serve the king, you're royalty. But that was not such a great honor. The greatest honor would be to be a royal member of the Knights of the Garter. What does it mean to be a royal member of the Knights of the Garter? Well, you would be presented with a sack, and the king would then stick out his smelly, fungal-infested toe, and you would then put a sack on 1 foot. Not 2 feet. 2 feet would be too much honor for a human being to bear in this world. And if you would do that, we would then put on you special clothing with special insignia that said you're a royal member of the Knights of the Garter. And your wife would have to wear the clothing, and your children would have to wear the clothing. And ad hayoim hazeh, in England, you would continue to wear the special clothing because your great-grandfather was a royal member of the Knights of the Garter. Because after all, if you serve the king, you're royalty. So let's make a kavachomer. And if you have the great opportunity to sing, to serve the King of all kings, Kel Chai, Chalkenu Tzurenu, how much honor should we feel? How much should our hearts be brimming with pride? If you have the opportunity to put on a pair of tefillin, To wear a yarmulke in the street, don't be embarrassed. It's royalty. You're a royal member of the Knights of the Jewish people. You were selected to be royalty, to serve the King of the universe. Says Rav Yonasan Eibeshitz, what is the nechama? Nachamu, nachamu, there's only one word of nechama. Ami, you are my people. You are associated with me. You're royalty. You're connected to the King of the world, and that is our nechama. So I wish you all nechama. We should be zocheh to binyan Beis Hamikdash Meher V'Yameinu.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.